Hello everyone, today is August 2nd, 2023. After 3 months of traveling all over the country and outside, we are finally back to our studio and we are so happy to be with you today. And looks like this summer proved to be very busy, and we decided to share with you on Artist Material Advisor what did we do this summer. So many years we were buying ochres from friends, and not only friends, from Italy and from Russia and from Kazakhstan and from Chile. We had so many sources, and we were too busy to make the colors for you, and always trusted the sources what were provided to us. And so finally this year we decided, actually it was 2020 when George decided to go to France and then Italy to have a documentary about the quarries where we are digging these colors. Of course COVID happened, and so this year we finally made it this trip. It was a lot of discoveries for us, and we can't wait to share some of the stories with you. And
so what we're doing is introducing also in this episode of the Artist Material Advisor a new video series called Unearthing Pigments. And we're going to show how earth or minerals are made into pigments. That's the whole point of the series. And it goes into the history of these minerals and earths and how they were used in art. And we'll cover all of that. But we're going to premiere the first episode, which will be about the ochres of France. And of course, this is the conclusion, or the result, I should say, of the trip that we took to France in May and June, where we visited the quarries and locations where these ochres are extracted and then processed, and then how they make it into our paint, the Rublev Colors paint line, as well as the pigments, and for sure in other paint lines. I'm certain that other companies buy some of their pigments as well. So this will be an interesting series that we're going to have.
And today we will just kind of have an overall view of what our visit to France was. So like George said, we will have a couple more series specifically about certain quarries. And I think we will have a special issue about French artists whom we met on the road and visit their studios. And that I think everybody will be interested in that, because we kind of like think about America and as a home for artists, and we do know that of course everybody on all other countries there are a group of artists. For us it was discovery to know, so they don't know anything about us, and so then that would be interesting too. Yes. So
we'll share our visit with some artists in France, in Provence and in the Burgundy region of France too. So we visited artists there in different parts. So we'd like to share that with you. That'll be in another Art Materials Advisor episode.
We don't know how long that today program will be, but I will make announcement right now if somebody can't stay until the end. So we have special deal right now on natural pigments, especially for the French colors. And do they need to know the code?
No. All they have to do is go to the website. There's bundle packs where you can get, if you buy several of these French ochres together, you can get them at a reduced price. This is just a special during to the end of I believe next week.
Yeah.
So
let's
check out. Yeah. So let's start this. This first video you're going to see is the first episode of Unearthing Pigments, which is a new playlist in the Rublev Colors YouTube channel. And so we'll be airing it here within this program. And this is an overview of the locations in France that was visited and the little bit of history of French ochres. So we'll get right into it.
Ask the
Welcome to this episode of Unearthing Pigments on the history and production of ochres in France. Ochre has been used by humans for thousands of years, and its significance in art, architecture, and industrial applications has left a lasting impact on the heritage of France. Join us as we delve into the origins, industrialization, and modern resurgence of ochre production. Ochre is a group of earth pigments comprising yellow ochre, red ochre, purple ochre, sienna, and umber. The primary components of all ochres is iron oxide, which occurs in various minerals like goethite, giving yellow hues, and hematite, responsible for red colors. The history of ochre production in France dates back to ancient times, with evidence of ochre usage in cave paintings dating back 15,000 years in sites like Lascaux and Pechemel. Initially used for body and face painting, ochre deposits were later utilized by the Iron Age inhabitants for forging tools and weapons due to their high iron ore content. The Renaissance period witnessed a flourishing use of ochre in art and architecture. Esteemed artists incorporated ochre pigments in their masterpieces, contributing to the vibrant palette of iconic paintings from this era. Ochre also played a crucial role in coloring buildings and monuments, leaving an enduring mark on France's architectural heritage. The 17th century marked a significant increase in ochre trading, particularly in regions like Roussillon. This boosted economic growth, creating a thriving market for ochre and strengthening France's trade relations. In the 1780s, French scientist Jean-Étienne Astier revolutionized ochre production with an industrial process. Clay extracted from open pits or mines, containing approximately 10 to 20% ochre, was washed in large basins to separate sand from ochre particles. The water was drained, the ochre was dried, cut into bricks, crushed, and sifted. The ochre was then classified by color and quality, with the finest reserved for artist pigments. Despite its historical prominence, ochre production faced challenges beginning in the 1930s. As synthetic pigments emerged, artist preferences changed, and economic crises occurred, leading to reduced demand for natural ochre. In the past, ochre was exploited in many regions throughout France. The annual production of ochre exceeded 40,000 tons at the beginning of the 20th century. But as demand of ochre declined, many mines and companies closed from the period between the 1930s and the 1960s. However, in recent times, ochre has experienced a revival of interest due to its natural appeal and eco-friendly properties. Artists, architects, and artisans have rediscovered the value of ochre, leading to its reintroduction into contemporary art and design. While some quarries like those in Roussillon have been transformed into museums, ochre production continues in other regions. The Vaucluse region still yields around 2,000 tons of ochre per year, with extraction points in Gargas and Roussel. The company Ochres de France still extracts large quantities of sand in open-pit quarries. Their color varies from yellow to red, sometimes with greenish or purplish veins. Nieve is another region where ochre is still extracted in Saint-Amand-Pusaye by the company Solar Gilles. The layer of ochre is very thin but homogeneous. This area of Burgundy has long been one of the main ochre-producing regions of France. The third site of ochre extraction is in Ardennes. The mines in this region are operated by the company Moulin Colère, which resumed ochre mining in 1998, extracting sienna clay and contributing to the annual production of 700 tons of ochre. The story of ochres in France is a testament to the enduring significance of these earth pigments in human history. From ancient cave paintings to Renaissance art and modern artistic renaissance, ochre has left an indelible mark on the cultural and industrial landscape of France. As we appreciate its historical legacy, let us celebrate the ongoing relevance and sustainable applications of ochre in the world today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through ochres of France. Join us again as we continue to explore the world of earth pigments. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like and share it with others. Subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring unearthing pigments. So that was the first of the Unearthing series, just an overview of French ochres. And if you missed that during this program, of course you can watch this program again later, but it's actually, will be in the Unearthing Pigments playlist. So you can go back and watch Ochres of France there. And this is just just an overview of the three main locations where ochre is currently mined in France. In the next, we're going to have two more after that, and one is going to cover the ochres of Burgundy and Ardennes, and then the second one will be the ochres of Apt.
Let's show something.
I'll show you a little trailer right now, just what that is. So here we have a piece, beautiful hematite. It's very hard, much harder than the yellow ochre, the gatite, but it occupies a layer just on top of this entire area.
We have about 90% of sand for 10% of ochre.
Okay.
About, it's not exact, but it's average, and we need to have pure ochre.
Right.
So we extract it.
So where are we?
We are on Château de
Loumarine.
Loumarine.
Chateau
de Loumarine. And so that is the village of the Loumarine. I hope our beautiful French friends will not be upset with me because I am butchering the language, and I will try my best. But anyway, that was great trip. We met incredible people, and so this program would be not only about the colors, but about people who work there, and but unearthing pigments. Yes, the program, George and I, we decided to do, if you remember, we kind of like announced that in February when we went to Arizona, and we bought several, a lot of pigments or rocks.
Well, minerals. Yeah,
minerals. And we wanted to show you and uncover what minerals make sense to make a pigment and what don't, because some pigments, as much as they, or some minerals, as much as they sound great, they don't make any colors. And that's the that was the main idea behind that program. But of course we started with French pigments because in our line of colors, basically the first oil colors were the French pigments. And so then what we just discovered, we will have our museum of colors, and so first color we ever made, it was orange ochre, and that was the French color. Mm-hmm. And so by the way, this year on September 3rd we're celebrating 20 years of our company. We will have big celebration here in the factory and in town.
In September 16th.
September 16th.
We couldn't do it during, of course, Labor Day, but we will have it on September 16th.
So we will have here, if you are not far from us, please come visit us. We will have open house. We will definitely
and we'll demonstrate.
Tours.
We'll demonstrate how paint is made during that. It'll be a Saturday afternoon.
For those of you who are far from us, we will have documentary. We will make a video of our party and our open house for you, and so this is our summer.
Yeah.
So let's go back to our questions. And Uncle 60, of course, I'm so happy to see you again. It's always pleasure and fun to read your questions.
So the question here is, what give ochre those two basic colors? And in the first video, we explained that the two basic colors are primarily based on two different minerals, goethite and hematite. So hematite gives a red color, and goethite gives a yellow to brown color. And in terms of iron, and these are both iron oxide minerals. They're just different forms of iron oxide. And so, for instance, the yellow has an iron oxide hydroxide, which means there's a water molecule trapped in there. And what you saw just briefly is in the trailer how they calcinate or roast the yellow ochre or the goethite, and it becomes now a red ochre. And this is also how you make a burnt umber or burnt sienna. It's the same process. So and we'll when we get into the next unearthing video, we're going to talk about that in much more detail. So it's a very interesting process, and how they process each of these minerals is different from the locations. One of the things that we learned, which was quite interesting, was that all of these companies, these French ochre companies, offer quite a range of different earth pigments. And so, and we've always wondered about that. Are these all originally, extracted just as they are? And what we learned primarily, and what we suspected also, is that they're blends. So in essence, there's really only 4 main sources of mineral in France. And by the way, there used to be, as I pointed out in the video, there used to be 18 companies producing 40,000 metric tons of ochre per year. This was a staggering amount for that time, and that was in the heyday of ochre production in France. And France probably had the largest ochre production in the world, and so we see that that's because of the Depression, because of the Second World War, and of course changes and everything. That production diminished considerably until now. It's only a fraction of what it used to be, but it's still an important industry. It's still important to artists who are seeking earth colors, earth pigments, because this is one of the few locations on the earth where they do produce it on a regular basis. Now, there's another question here.
As much as we actually were surprised how much they are mixing the ochres or the pigments, but we realized then in history it was always done.
It was a practice.
It was nothing new.
Right. It was a practice done industrially and when you have to think about it, the majority of the ochre is not sold to artist paint. It's actually sold for building. That's the primary. That's probably at least 80% of the total sales for ochre. So you have to understand that they do the blends for that particular market, not necessarily for artists. But we can benefit from those, and by far the majority of those blends are all natural. So in other words, they just blend various amounts of the different minerals available to them. Of course, there's another question here. Are there other places you can find ochres besides France, like Canada or some part of the continent of America? And actually, yes. In fact, here in the United States, there's several major ochre producers, and we do buy pigments from them and make them available. One of our most popular ones is what we call Blue Ridge Yellow Ochre, which is an ochre from the West Virginian area and produced by a company. Actually, it is a family company that was owned and operated for well over 100 years, well known in this country. So there are ochres produced in Canada. Not so much ochres, but there's other minerals being produced in Canada that are very important, used in many different industries. And at the beginning of today's episode, Tanya mentioned in Chile there are ochres produced there. There's a very well-known a set of ochres being produced in South Africa. Company's been there doing that for quite some time. Of course, Italy and Cyprus. And
looks like in Italy we are going next year. We will have exactly the same.
We want to visit the quarries, and we'll show you what these look like and where the source of all these pigments are. So that'll be very interesting. Most of them, of course, from the Verona area or the Veneto region of Italy. And of course, Armenia, we can't forget that. We've found a great source of different ochres and different pigments, earth pigments from Armenia. So it's a great source. But ochres are found everywhere on the planet, actually. And in fact, if you see a brightly colored area, it's usually like a road cut or where they're exposed to the earth. And if it's brightly red or yellow, it's likely that it is an ochre of some sort.
Uncle 60, I will answer your question about our workshops, and so it's not on CD. It's actually available on paintingbestpractices.com, and right now we are giving exactly the same price what we gave 10 years ago. It's $450. Although it was, I think it was 600 something.
650.
650. We are reduced because we really trying to work and put more information there right now. So, but for now you have the opportunity to go and you can purchase that, and actually it will work 6 months. I believe, yes. Or is that
6 months?
6 months.
6 months access to the online course.
So
at paintingbestpractices.com.
So you can do this. If you have any questions, call to our office. It's 888-361-5900, and we will help you. So I saw a question about wollastonite.
Let's get to that. Let's get to that in a moment, because this is pertinent to what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Yeah, Victoria Finley's book about color. There are Australian ochres. We don't import them because it's a huge cost. Australia has an amazing iron deposits there. And of course, it's kind of obvious in some cases when you see the red sands, the red
Yes.
areas, especially in central Australia. But we don't have Australian ochres, but there are being produced there also. Just most of that mineral is actually being used for iron production. So, which, by the way, a lot of ochres in France at one time was actually produced for iron. As we mentioned in the first video, the history of ochre has very, very long. We see ochres being used by prehistoric humans who painted the caves, such as Lascaux and Mèche-Perle, and there's many other locations in France where they find this. But they also see that the iron was being produced during the Iron Age in France. So that's another. Like I said, ochres are available practically everywhere on the planet. It is probably one of the most, iron is one of the most abundant minerals, and the form that it makes in terms of ochres is perhaps one of the most common forms of iron available. So I'll go to that question from Uncle 60 about wollastonite. Wollastonite is an extender pigment. It's a natural mineral. It has the form, what they call a sicular form, or needle. The particles have a needle-like shape, and of course it's a white color, but it has very little effect or very little covering power or hiding power. So it's not really a white pigment in oil paint. It possibly can be used as a minor white or very transparent white in some paint techniques like perhaps tempera. But it's primarily used as an extender in many types of products, but in paint, what it does is it tends to create more matte effect in some ways, but and also because of the needle-like shape. So your question is, what's the difference, or why should you use fine over extra fine? The basic difference is that the larger the particle size, the greater the amount of texture. Although the texture will be quite small in either of those cases. The texture is not going to be visible necessarily to the unaided eye, but it does produce a difference in terms of the type of matteness that you get from a paint film. So that is, we offer those choices just to make things more interesting for artists.
Jason had a good question. Do you see that?
Yep. Let me. Yep. Okay. So. Can you talk more about purple ochre?
We would love to talk about purple ochre. And in fact, we are right now preparing a special program on our color notes. And remember, we have another
playlist on the YouTube Rublev Colors YouTube channel.
So, and it's called Color Notes, and so we working right now on purple ochre and violet hematite. So we compare two of them, and so what is it exactly you want to hear? I'm not sure. So then, what
basically, again, it's a purple ochre. It's an iron oxide, and always keep in mind that iron oxides have a range of color from yellow to brown to red, purple, and even black.
Actually, purple is very unusual. So, in fact, in our company, when we started make colors, we completely forgot about purple, because in nature, purple is not exist. And even purple ochre, what we call purple ochre, it's not exactly, if you will look the pigment,
it's not a bright purple, but it has a deep, subdued purple,
violet
purple type cast to it, and which makes it, and the main difference between the violet hematite and the purple ochre is its opacity, so, and tint strength. So that's the main particular difference. So it is a hematite, but there's a small amount of other mineral there that turns that red into kind of a purple color. So just like, for instance, you can take a yellow ochre and by adding a little bit of black, you turn it into a very subdued green. The same thing, or a somewhat different change in color happens with hematites or with red ochres. So that's its main, and it's a very popular color in our line because people have found it to be excellent, especially in shadow areas, because it gives that cool, that kind of coolness to the shadow. It makes it very unusual. So it's a very popular way about that.
So then we're basically can answer this question, Akshay. So are ochres better than oxides? it's
if you're talking about
same.
synthetic oxides, iron oxides, it's not that they're better. Neither one is better than the other. They're different. So, for instance, some companies or people may claim that synthetic iron oxides are better. Well, what is the basis of that claim? In other words, how is it better? See, you have to understand something could be better for one application, but not very good for another application. So better in the case from an artistic standpoint has to be qualified based on what criteria. So as an example, for instance, if you're looking for extremely strong tinting, if you're looking for great coverage, very good hiding power, yes, certainly synthetic iron oxide is going to give that to you. But if you want something more subtle, if you want more transparency, if you want maybe texture in your painting, then an earth color will be a much better, an earth pigment. By the way, the term earth pigment really means a natural iron oxide. So
which is basically, that's what it is.
It's an iron oxide.
Ochres are iron oxides.
Earth pigments, and they're all iron oxides. So it's not about being better. It's really about what it means to you. What do you need in your painting? And that's why, for instance, as an example, in the Rublev color line, we do have what the so-called Mars colors, which are actually iron oxides. We use the term Mars because that was the term used especially in the late 18th and the 19th century to denote a series of synthetic iron oxides, which were being introduced at that time for the very first time.
Since we were talking about purple ochre, so here's Uncle 60 writes, purple ochre seems a little muddy. Actually, not. It's I mean, of course, if
it's your viewpoint. It really is up to how you see things.
Usually, people say that our purple ochre is so clean, but I think it's, again, we're talking about how it's subdued compared to. That's why we will do violet hematite. Right. So then, yes, compared to that, you will say like, oh, this is earthy. This is different word for muddy. No, it's not muddy.
Some may consider it muddy or not as saturated as compared to, as an example, a violet cobalt, which obviously is not going to be it's not going to have the same color. This is the advantage, perhaps in some ways, of earth pigments, because they're subdued. So if you're painting a realist or realism, a natural type painting, then using earth colors make a lot of sense, because the palette that you find in nature is rather subdued. You don't go out and find a sky of ultramarine and a lake of cobalt blue. You see that these colors are mitigated. They're not as bright.
So, Tiri, we missed you on our cohorts. George was preparing whole answer for you, and hopefully you will look on cohorts back video. But here's your question is, are there any blue earth pigments? No. earth pigments. No, it was one
Well,
color we had.
there is
Vivianite.
technically a blue, what we call, and we were heavily corrected about calling ochre blue, but that is the parlance for a pigment known as Vivianite.
Yeah.
And Vivianite is a bluish earth color, but it is not an ochre. Okay, that's very important to understand. It's technically the mineral is Vivianite, named after a Russian count who discovered it, and in fact that's where we used to get it. Right now we don't have it anymore because it's a very rare mineral and is found in very few places on the planet. There are big deposits in Russia. There are some smaller deposits in Europe, and it did find its way into European painting, especially in the 15th and 16th century. There's some examples of it there, but it's a blue earth pigment. It has somewhat reminiscent of a kind of a dull indigo.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like an indigo
very,
color.
very
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful color.
very close to what we had Maya. That's why we had Vivianite, but then we lost because of, in Russia situation. Then we had Maya, now we lost Maya. And so it's like every time in history, pigments come and they go. And that's our task or goal, to bring that pigments to you. So that's we still will try to bring the Vivianite back, and looks like George is talking now, making Maya here in our factory.
Here's another question here. How is yellow ochre lightened, such as yellow ochre light? Well, in some cases, it's done naturally. It is natural. In other words, the iron content of ochres can be anywhere from 10% up to 90%. And of course, the bigger the percentage of the iron content, the stronger tinting, the more opaque the color is. However, the other part of that mix is a natural melange of different minerals that are normally associated with that area. Wherever they dig it, there's going to be a mixture of different minerals. It could be chalk, calcium carbonate. It could be clay, aluminum, which is an aluminum silicate, or it could be sand, which is a quartz. Or a silicate. So all of these are possible. And in the ochres, which we're going to talk about in the upcoming episodes on Unearthing Pigments, we're going to talk about how in one part of France, the majority of the pigment, or what they dig out of the ground, is sand. But in the other part, the majority is clay. So
Neil,
all of these,
I
all
didn't
these
mean
vary.
to laugh at the question. I just laugh at actually in our situation, because we just again we placed a new order for French pigments, because we got so excited about coming back, and of course one of the colors was in range of the pigments we have yellow ochre extra pale. In oils it's pale yellow ochre or yellow ochre pale, which we realize now we will not have anymore. So we have enough pigment to make maybe another batch. And again, not many people even understand that color, because if it will be on wrong hands, some people saying what a mud people sell to us.
Well, it's a very low tinting color. It has almost no tint strength. But that's why some people really liked it.
Yeah, it's in range of yellow colors for us, but it's so light. What you wrote lightened, so that's why we smile about that. So
and another way to lighten any of these earth pigments is to use an extender pigment. I was talking earlier about wollastonite, but there's chalk, there's clay, there's talc, all
we could
kinds
make
of
this
things.
for you, but we will not. So then you will buy our yellow ochre light, and then you will mix with any extender what you like. So then you will have your pale ochre.
So what's white ochre? Well, there's no such thing as a white ochre technically. So
No.
that's a misnomer completely. Some people may call chalk a white ochre, but it's not an ochre because it's not an iron oxide. So that's really important.
So
I like this comment from Eileen. She talks about purple ochre is awesome. Thank you for that. And Eileen is a tempera painter. And the violet gray Lavalite is great too. It's a pigment that we have, and we don't have that in oil paint.
Ooh,
But
we making already 2 years.
we're trying. We're trying.
2 years. We have actually 6 colors, new 6 colors from Armenia to present to you. And you probably remember from AMA last year, we were saying then we're almost ready. And the time we are ready to put in the tube and it's misbehave again. And so beautiful colors. We still don't know when we will introduce to you as the oil, but as the pigments, it's available. It's 2 travestine, so orange and yellow travestine. So
And an olive umber.
Olive umber.
We're working on this. Sometimes,
color.
our earth pigments are sometimes difficult to make, especially
They are pain.
when you don't. And the difficulty is not actually in making them into paint. The difficulty is for them to store well, and that's really the difficulty. You can easily make them into paint, use them
it immediately,
use them
so,
right
yeah.
away, and it's not a problem. The problem always comes when you have to store them, and that's the job. That's the task that we have as a manufacturer, and that's what we overcome. And we've learned how to do that in almost every case. Some there are very few of them where we just gave up. We just couldn't. And the reason why it's more difficult for our case is because we're not using any additives. If we use an additive, the job would be a lot easier. And
That's probably why it explains, not probably, that explains why none of other companies are usually touching the
range
natural.
the range of colors like we have, because they are challenges. There's no question about it, but they're absolutely
We
beautiful.
love challenges.
Well, that's true. Yes. The Super Bosque, I guess. Is there any best practice on how to process earthy pigments? We do have in the Painting Best Practice courses. There is a course on how to make oil paint, as an example, or how to make paint, I should say. Or actually, there's 2 of them. One on how to make oil paint, one how to make water-based paint, like
We can have a note and have a special
but
one.
But if you're talking about how to process, in other words, how to take a mineral and make that into a pigment, that's where the Unearthing Pigments is going to help you. So stay tuned it'll be in the future. We're going to have specific minerals, and we're going to walk through actually how to actually make them into a pigment then.
So do ochres dry faster? So this is Uncle 60 is asking, do ochre dry faster? Some yes. And it's again depend on the pigment and depend of the mixture of pigments in that ochre, because again
red iron oxides tend to dry faster than yellow iron oxides, so that's the case too. Let me see.
The earth is mud color. It's okay.
Let me read. Here's what is anthracene. That's just a type of. It's actually a type of chemical that's used to make some colors, especially in the past. Let me see. Do ochres dry faster? We got that. The earth is a mud color. I'm okay with mud. Yes.
Susan, do you see?
Do you have
Susan?
approximate time frame when you'll be able to supply any types or blue ochres or your lazurite?
So lazurite is right now on production. It's probably again we will introduce. We will go back to jars. It went very fast, very easy. And people love it, the fact how it's packed, and at least it's reasonable price. And for sure we will not afraid the separation, again, because we don't put any additives in that. So lazurite is in production right now. Maybe 2 to 3 weeks we will bring back. Vivianite, a little bit difficult because
the source we had was in Russia. It's what's interesting about the mineral vivianite. It's actually grows or forms, I should say, if not grows, but forms on organic materials. So where it's found is the most common location where it's found is in peat bogs, but it's actually been known to form on bones and things of this nature. So we're investigating other sources of vivianite. We did see a source in Brazil, in the Amazon, but we're uncertain about that particular type or form of vivianite. It's not a typical form that can be used as a pigment, so we're unsure.
It did look very black, but definitely look like glass. So then we can understand, and as soon as we grind, it will lose color completely.
We'll figure that out. But it's a beautiful color, and so the lazurite or lapis lazuli, just why it goes in and out of stock, it's because the source of our lapis is from Afghanistan. So sometimes we can get it, sometimes not, but we're going to try to ensure a more steady supply.
And Susan, we will have in Canada. We will send to our. It will be on naturalpigments.ca, and so
we'll make it available.
Yeah, and I think you will have announcement that for Canada too. So wait.
Is lapis not an earth blue? Like I mentioned, earth pigments, or how we classify earth pigments, are iron oxide pigments. So technically, no, it's not an earth blue pigment. But anybody could call it an earth blue. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just that when we're communicating with people, we refer to earth pigments as a natural iron oxide. That's the only difference there.
So Akshay, I will definitely pay attention your problem with painting best practices. This is really not common. So usually people register and like this. So can you please write to?
Make sure that, for instance, you look in your spam folder, because sometimes mail goes to there. So, but. We'll take a look at for you and let you know.
Okay. So did we cover everything?
Somebody wants to say, one day show your production factory making oil paint process. We actually have a couple of videos showing the process in the YouTube channel. We'll be glad to do that.
We need to prepare this. We make a special program for 20th anniversary, and looks like it will be very exciting.
We have some old videos of
when we started in garage here
of us in the garage grinding paint. So that's kind of an interesting aspect of that. So we'll do that some point in time.
Great.
So great. Well, any more questions? We want to thank you for joining us today. Please stay tuned. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, please, and because it encourages us to really do more in that regard. Because what we're trying to do is educate artists not only about the paints and how to paint, but all of the source materials that go into making paint. The history is wonderful, and locations on the earth where all of this has happened is so exciting, and that's what we want to share with you.
Don't keep for yourself. Share with your artist friends knowledge about us. Thank you very much. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you on our Wednesdays morning. Thank you. See you next time.
Bye now.